So let's start with, what does the modern business environment look like? Economic crisis or no? And one of the phrases that is frequently bandied about is that the world is flat. And what that means is that you have intensifying global competition, not just in kind of national markets, but also in local markets. What's really interesting is that this doesn't just apply to companies, it also applies to individuals. And so, part of the thesis that I started LinkedIn on the basis of is that every individual is now themselves becoming a small business, and all of the rules that apply to businesses now apply to how individuals start their careers. So that's, for example, you have a brand, which is how are you as essentially a product and a service deployed competitively. And it gets down to sort of two areas, which is people and information. And they're related because part of what you do when you're looking for people is you're looking for expertise. And part of that expertise is information. And part of the question about what information you trust comes down to what are the sources of people, and do you find the right people in order to help you do a job. When you're actually looking for information, it's not just like a fact, like what was Google's revenue last year, or what is the latest technique in trying to, for example, promote your website into Google SEO, but also a set of what are the available practices, what are the available ways that you can potentially compete effectively, what are the tools that you can be using either as an individual or for a business that are now available and can give you an edge, and then what's the benchmark for being successful. One is innovation, second is speed, and then the third is adaptation. On innovation, it's you got to presume that your competitors are picking up the pace. Speed, in terms of the fact that the person who gets to deploying the product or service first, gets it established into the market, can almost always create some kind of advantage. And then adaptiveness. And part of adaptiveness is there's a mantra in Silicon Valley which is failing fast. And obviously failing isn't a good idea, right? You try to avoid doing that. But you try to actually, in some sense, learn as quickly as possible what things won't work or what things used to work aren't working anymore in order to change. And again, part of how you use your network is a way of getting information about that early so that you can adapt early. As a angel investor and as an advisor, I meet entrepreneurs who are like, well, the really precious thing is my idea, right? So I don't really want to tell anyone my idea, right? Because once they have my idea, they might be able to compete with me. That almost is never the pattern by which Silicon Valley business operates. And the reason is because part of how you get to that failing fast and that adaptiveness is you actually go and talk to all of the people that can potentially provide you useful feedback and information. Now, why this is critical, I think, for entrepreneur and business is all of these different aspects of what entrepreneurship are and pulling together a business. So, for example, as a financier, it's getting people referred in or being able to reference check and that sort of thing. As an entrepreneur, it's getting a trusted introduction to a source, because that trusted introduction is entirely different between being a stranger walking up to you in a street and being someone who the person goes, oh, this is a person I should focus on and really think about potentially doing business with. Another example is hiring. One of the critical things is the first people that you have into your business. What kind of company culture do you create? Do they have kind of the right stuff in terms of the entrepreneurial exercise, which is running really fast over uneven ground and adjusting your pace frequently? And each help each other find the right kind of people and information. We are moving towards a kind of a free agent nation. And what's happening is, how do you assemble a team of resources in order to solve a problem is part of what makes you effective as a senior professional. The fact is, we live in a networked, accelerating world. And so whichever tools that you decide to adopt as a business person, whether it's, for example, in addition to LinkedIn, I think Twitter is interesting. These tools are out there in this kind of networked modern world. And whatever your business is, adopting them and figuring out how to use them for a competitive advantage early helps create a competitive advantage against your competitors. And the thing that is true is that competitors are not just the people you see in the room, right? Part of the world being flat is that competition is now much more global, and you have to figure out how to kind of pick up the pace against that.